Okay, I think we are going to get ready to begin the webinar. So thank you for joining. And I am going to give the floor over to our presenters, Vivi and Chris. If you do have any questions at the end, please feel free to put them in the question chat or use the hand raise kind of graphic and we will unmute you. Okay.
Okay, let's get started. We're going to turn off our webcams just for connectivity purposes. So, hello everybody. Thank you for taking the time out of your day for attending our presentation on the tools you should prioritize when investing in your third-party risk management program. But before we get into the presentation, let me briefly go over who Tevora is. Tevora is a management consulting firm specializing in cybersecurity. Since its founding in 2003, we've been part of thousands of engagements across a variety of industries. Tevora can do anything from developing cybersecurity programs to performing risk assessments to a variety of compliance frameworks.
Yes, and besides projects working with different frameworks and such, we also have free resources available on our website. So if you're watching this webinar right now, we're assuming that you have at least a high-level understanding or basic understanding of what third-party or vendor or supplier risk management is. If not, however, you can go to our website and check out all the different resources available specific to TPRM. But first, let's introduce ourselves, just so you know that we're not some random people Tevora found on the street. We do have some experience in this field. So my name is Vivi Huang. I am a Senior Information Security Associate here at Tevora on the third-party services team. I do have experience working on other types of projects as well, but mainly my focus is in developing and implementing TPRM programs for clients, and I also help clients maintain their programs with day-to-day activities.
And I'm Chris Aiken. I'm an Information Security Associate here at Tevora, and I also work on the third-party risk management team here, working on developing, supporting, and maintaining programs for our clients.
So for today, we'll be going over the different categories of TPRM tools that you might encounter when you're trying to look for something to support your program. We'll also discuss different considerations you should keep in mind as you're shopping around for a tool. And we'll go over cases where Tevora can help you in this endeavor. But I want to really emphasize throughout this webinar, as we're talking about all these different tools and different capabilities and features, that these tools should help your process, not define your process. So ideally, your TPRM team or your organization should already have a well-defined process or framework in place that you follow. You don't want the solution to be the main crux of your program. I like to think of TPRM kind of like Batman. You know, there's a lot of haters out there who argue that Bruce Wayne, without all his tools and gadgets and gizmos, is just, you know, a random Joe Schmo with no superpowers. But I think that Bruce Wayne is incredibly capable. You know, he's very strong. He's well trained and he's very smart. You know, in the old days, they used to call him the world's greatest detective. So just like your team, you know, without the tools, they're still very capable and they have their own skills and expertise. But with some TPRM specific tools, they can actually handle more, say, mature TPRM programs or handle a larger number of vendors or more complex vendors who may have more risk or more complex risk, just like Bruce Wayne with his tools is Batman and could fight actual supervillains with actual superpowers, as opposed to just a regular guy who, you know, uses laughing gas. Yeah, and if you don't like Batman, you can use a different metaphor, say Mario. Mario with a super leaf or a fire flower becomes a Tanuki or a fire Mario, etc. So that being said, let's go over the different types of tools that you might encounter when you're looking for TPRM tools.
So before we dive into what each tool can bring to the table, we're first going to discuss what type of tools are out there. We've separated the types of third-party risk management tools into 5 different categories. First up, we have tools that can be utilized for third-party risk management, but are not specifically designed for them. Common examples of these include any spreadsheet applications or organizational trackers. Next up, we have rating and scoring tools. These tools use data that can be easily gathered about a vendor and provide a user with a security grade for that vendor. Next, we have an exchange. This allows for your company and vendor to securely exchange any relevant documentation, policies, or certifications. Following that, we have a questionnaire model where the tool allows for pre-made or custom questionnaires to be made and sent to each vendor. And finally, we have a process management tool that streamlines and assists with the overall process of your program, and in many cases allows for automation of your program. One thing to keep in mind throughout the rest of this presentation is that none of these categories are exclusive in of themselves, and many solutions do incorporate a combination of these categories. With that being said, let's start by diving into each tool, starting with non-third-party risk management tools.
Yes, so these tools aren't exactly a TPRM category in and of itself because they're not made exclusively for TPRM, but they are useful and they're a great option if, let's say, you're a very small organization with not a lot of resources available to dedicate to specific TPRM tools. So theoretically, if you have a computer with access to internet, you can manage a TPRM program. The downside to this, however, would be that it could get really messy and unorganized because these types of tools, let's say like spreadsheets, Word documents, and emails, you're making all these different documents and then you're sending them off to the vendor via email, and then you're getting all these messages, and it could make the whole process very difficult to manage. And another drawbacks of this type of program that relies solely on non-TPRM tools is that vendors might not want to participate, or it might not be easy for the vendor to participate, especially compared to, say, a rating tool, which makes it much more easier for vendors.
So tools that use ratings or scores to reflect a vendor security posture can help expedite a review in many instances. You can log on to a tool, look up a vendor that you're thinking of using, and have instant access to like what certifications they have, or get a glimpse into what their security posture looks like. It also allows for you to compare different vendors to each other based on their security scores to find the vendor that works best for you. This simple premise makes it easy for either side to use and understand, and can help minimize constant back and forth for getting answers. However, this type of tool does require the solution to manage their algorithm, and in many cases requires the vendors to keep their profiles updated. And with many tools out there, some vendor ratings could be out of date or not included in the catalog, so it's important to find one that works for the type of vendor that you think you're using. In addition, different tools use different algorithms to score the vendor's security grade, so it's important that you find one that works best for you. Overall, this tool can be very efficient for what it's designed to do, but if you're looking for more details of your vendor, or if you already have a relationship with your vendor, you might want to consider something like an exchange.
Yes, so exchange tools are primarily focusing on the secured exchange of documents, which is great, especially for the vendors. Some exchange tools allow vendors to make their own profiles similar to the rating tools, where they make their documents available to clients. So going back to what we discussed with the rating tools, those type of tools will have, for example, a little badge that says, they're SOC 2 certified. But with the Exchange tools, they would actually have the report available. So your team would be able to download and read the report and see if there are any exceptions or if the service or application is actually in scope, because sometimes these assessments or these certifications aren't covering what you're looking for. So it's very helpful for your organization to have these types of tools, especially if you have a more mature program or you have more resources available to dedicate time to reading through your vendors' documentations and doing more in-depth assessments. That being said, that is sort of a drawback because it might require your team to do more work. You're not relying on the vendor for a nice grade or score. Also, these types of tools often don't have automation involved. So you would have to just download the documents yourself and read them. Let's say your team has developed a very nice TPRM framework that has a list of risks that you're concerned about. These type of Exchange tools might not have the capability to automatically identify risk and populate risks within the solution, which is something you might see with questionnaire type tools.
So customization is the primary draw for a tool that utilizes questionnaires. In addition to pre-made templates, users can create an in-depth questionnaire that conforms to their specific security needs, and it can be as specific as needed. For example, a critical vendor that deals with personally identifiable information can receive a much more in-depth questionnaire, while a vendor who deals with e-recycling can receive a less rigorous questionnaire. In addition, many questionnaires tools can provide statistics based on vendors' responses to see what security concerns may be common among the vendors that you use. This customization allows for the process to be optimized for your organization needs. However, there are some downsides to this type of solution. In some cases, a vendor might not want to participate in answering a questionnaire, especially if it's a really rigorous one. And in other cases, they might not want to provide any documents due to confidentiality. An organization using this tool should consider having fallbacks in case these situations occur. And these fallbacks can lead to additional resources needed on running the program. This type of tool also tends to have more vendor back and forth with your questionnaires, especially with non-cooperative vendors or vendors that misunderstand the questions that you ask them. Because of this, an organization can become dependent on this type of platform, which can lead to inefficiencies, exceptions, and unique vendor cases if a proper workflow or process is not in place for your program. The scenario leads us into the process management tool, which can help run your entire program.
Yes, exactly. So these process management tools are great for keeping your internal team organized in terms of the workflow and the steps needed to be taken for a vendor assessment. So to illustrate, just an example, let's say you have a new vendor and you input the vendor into this process management solutions vendor inventory or register. Perhaps it might have the capability to send out an email automatically via the solution to the vendor to kickstart the process. And maybe it will automatically create a profile and it will have the stage or the phase of your assessment clearly highlighted on the profile or on, say, a dashboard. So you know exactly where the vendor is and when to next act or complete some sort of action item. Another great feature that some of these process management tools have is that they can often keep communications within the solution, or you may do all of your communications within the solution as opposed to, say, having a separate email inbox. You know, as mentioned when we were talking about the non-TPRM tools, the emails can get very unruly. You know, we might be seeing thousands of emails per month for all these different vendors, and it may be difficult to track down that email and that specific communication for that vendor. So some of these process management solutions are able to separate them by vendor profile, which is very helpful. Another great thing about some of these process management solutions is that they allow for dashboards or say automatically or customizable reports that you can create for your organization so you know where exactly your TPRM program is at the moment. So let's say you want to see how many vendors are currently in assessment versus reassessment, or how many critical or high risk are currently out there in your environment in terms of, you know, third-party risk. So I just went through some great potential features these solutions might have, but unfortunately, it comes at a cost. You know, these types of solutions are often a little more expensive than the other ones we mentioned, not just in terms of money, but also in terms of, say, time and resources. They might require a separate team to install or perhaps train your personnel, or you might have to train your personnel in order to use this solution effectively. Another drawback may be that the solution could constrain or affect your process depending on its capabilities. So for example, let's say that your TPRM program relies heavily on tiering your vendors. So let's say a low risk vendor versus a critical risk vendor would go through different workflows. But if this process management solution isn't able to have different workflows or to go backwards in the workflow or etc., it could heavily affect your process. And then you would have to have some sort of workaround, which leads us into what Chris will go over now about things to consider about your organization when selecting a solution.
So it's important to note that not all organizations are the same, which means not all organizations' needs are going to be the same. There are 5 aspects of your organization you should consider before choosing the tool right for your third-party risk management program. So the first thing to consider is your overall program. Is it a new or mature program? What is your process with reviewing vendors? What is your end goal for your program? A newer program might want to opt for not using any dedicated third-party risk management tools or keeping things simple with using vendor ratings, while a mature program might want to invest more into their overall program design with a tool that allows them to run a full workflow through it. The next consideration is you need the size and expertise of your third-party risk management team. Do you have a dedicated third-party risk management team that really understands and are experts in third-party risk management? Or is it run by a couple people on the security team that's learning as they go? Or it can be a combination where you do have a couple dedicated members, but not enough to run the program that you'd like to have. The following consideration is how many vendors your organization is working with and what type of vendors. If you're a small organization just dealing with a couple vendors, it might make sense to keep track of everything yourselves, versus a larger organization that has thousands of vendors across the globe. Also, you should consider how critical certain vendors are to your organization and what type of data they can access. In many cases, vendors are separated into tiers of how important they are to your business. So finding a tool that can incorporate that tiering process can be vital. The next consideration is overall investment. A well-designed process that uses multiple categories previously discussed takes time and money. That small organizations might not have the need or resources to heavily invest into their program. Or if your organization's on a tight schedule, you might want to, and you might not be able to invest into a third-party risk management tool for the long term. You could instead opt for a tool that is more simple, that can get your program running up and running relatively fast. And the last consideration we have is compliance, because depending on where your organization or vendors are located and what type of industry your organization is serving, different regulations may apply. If you're working with the US government, you would have to consider FedRAMP. If you're working with any European Union citizens, you'd have to consider GDPR. Or if your organization works with the payment card industry, you would have to consider PCI compliance. So these considerations are only half of the story. I'm now going to hand it off to Vivi to talk about what you should consider about the tools themselves.
Yes, so the second half of this story, things to consider about the tool. First would be the UI. You know, it's not exactly the thing you would think of as the first thing, the first consideration you want to think about, but the fact of the matter is that your TPRM team or you will be using this tool almost every single day. So hopefully it should help you and not hinder you. So, you know, is it intuitive, easy to learn, or does it have a lot of weird quirks? For example, let's say if you need to update a vendor profile, does it require you to click on it and then it pops up another window and then it takes 30 seconds to load that window, and as you're typing, it's lagging, and then you don't know if it's gonna save or not? You know, little things like that really add up. And unfortunately, I am speaking from experience. So customization. Does this tool allow for you to customize it, you know, in terms of layout or branding? Does it allow you to include your company's logos or brands, especially for tools that outside or external stakeholders might see? So let's say the vendors are accessing one of your questionnaires. Will they be able to know that it is in fact from your company and not a random phishing attempt? Third, support. You know, does this tool come with a dedicated support team just for your organization, or does it come with a content help library, or does it just come with general support to a help inbox? Next would be templates. So, next would be integrations. Is this tool able to be integrated into your environment? You know, can it be integrated with your company's SSO? You know, are there APIs, plugins that your company can easily use, or would you have to hire another installation team from the vendor in order to implement it? Templates. So does the solution come with pre-made templates such as questionnaires or workflows that will make it easier for you to start your program? And lastly, but of course not least, would be the capabilities and features. So what can this solution do? Yeah, it's a very big question, sometimes may be difficult to answer. Chris and I and the rest of our team here at Tevora, we've been on quite a few sales demos, which are a lot of fun. We love the sales guys, but sometimes they don't always tell you what you want to know, as in, you know, what can this tool do? So we find it very helpful to try to think of questions revolved around specifically what your company wants to see from the tool. So for example, can this tool send out reminders? Let's say it's time for reassessment. Can it, you know, will it email your team members and say, you know, this vendor needs to be onboarded, etc.? Or another question could be something like, can this tool create different roles or access permissions for different personnel? Can this tool create sub-vendor profiles for, let's say, vendors that have subsidiaries or partner groups that are not exactly the same as the vendor, but they are related and may have related engagements. So there's a lot of different things to consider when you're trying to figure out what the tool can actually do before you purchase it. But that's where Tevora can help. So we could jump into the sales call with you or some other part of the process. So Chris will go over an example timeline of how exactly we can help while you're looking for a new solution.
So Tevora can help develop and maintain any aspect of your third-party risk management program, but here we'll focus on what we can do to help you procure a new third-party risk management tool. We would start by doing an initial review of your program and what your organizational goals are with your program to determine what type of tools work best for you. Next, we would help you with solution shopping, meeting with various vendors for demos, seeing if the tool has the capabilities to meet your wants and needs. Like Vivi mentioned earlier, we've been in multiple demos that do not fully go through what their tool can achieve. So if that occurs, we would have the expertise to help identify any gaps or concerns. We then would do a solution review to compare the different tools we saw to choose the best one that would fit your needs. After the solution is chosen, we can work with the vendor to help install it and also work with you to incorporate it into your program and help train any personnel on its use. We can then help with the playbook development to document how you use the tool and how the solution is going to interact with your program. That way, any new hires or personnel changes that will have to start using the tool can quickly learn and hit the ground running with your program. And after the solution is fully implemented and you've run your program through it for a while, we'd want to do a solution reassessment where we can see if the tool is meeting your organization's expectations, or to see if your program has outgrown the tool. And if it has, maybe you'd want to transition to something that would help your program expand into something bigger.
Yes, exactly. So we have helped different clients migrate their program from one solution to another. We've helped clients find new solutions or retire old ones. So we do have experience with helping clients regarding TPRM solutions. We're here and we have your back. If you have any questions, you could ask them in the chat box now, or feel free to reach out to us via email. But essentially, that was our webinar. If anyone has any questions, feel free to ask now.
There is one question. Can you suggest any specific solution or product?
Unfortunately, we're not able to suggest it right off the bat, especially since we don't know what your organization needs, what type of organization you are or how your team is. But you can always reach out to us and we can discuss it further after a few meetings and scoping calls.
Great. And there's one other question. Why are there not a one-size-fits-all tool yet?
So third-party risk management as a whole is still being incorporated into many organizations. So this field needs more development, and once developed some more, a one-size-fits-all tool could be developed. But as of right now, it makes sense to have a tool belt of tools that fits your specific needs for your organization.
Great, thank you. Those were all the questions.
Great, well, thanks again for taking the time out of your busy day to attend our webinar. feel free to think of us as Alfred and your team as Batman. You know, we're here and you have your back. So thank you very much and have a great day.
Thanks, Vivi. Bye, everyone.
Goodbye.